In another history video about obscure and less famous places, today I tell the story of the Chadds Ford Ramada Inn, opened in 1976 at the crossroads of routes 1 and 202 in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania. While much history has been told of the Brandywine Valley area, it appears little has been shared about the Ramada Inn, so sit back and enjoy, and when you're done, check out my other hotel history videos. Before we jump right in, a quick history. Ramada was founded in 1953 by Chicago restaurateur Marion Isbell, and by the late 1970s, Ramada ranked as the second largest hotel chain in the U.S., behind industry leader Holiday Inn. As such, Glen Mills would soon be home to one of the largest hotel chains. Ramada remains a dominant force in the hotel industry through the 1970s and into the 1980s, before things start to change dramatically, but that's a topic for another video. My own connection to the Chadds Ford Ramada Inn occurs working there from 1986 to 1988 while attending college. The Ramada would be developed on the northbound side of Route 202, just before crossing over Route 1, also traveling north. The area is commonly known as Painter's Crossing. On the corner edge of the site once sat a famous roadside stop known as the Golden Gate Restaurant. This would later become a Sinclair gas station and can be seen in a historic video taken on the site of another famous landmark across 202, Christie's Restaurant. Lots of history can be found about the restaurant, which operated from the 1920s to 1960s before eventually being demolished. The site is home to the Sunoco gas station today. Back on the Ramada side of 202, the building once housed the Golden Gate and Sinclair gas station is likely demolished in the 1950s, as it can be seen in aerial views in 1950, but is gone by 1958. Today, the land is an abandoned gas station. The project was originally developed as far back as 1973 by Dave Sabatano Company and was delayed by the township in 1974 due to concerns about stormwater drainage. Approval is eventually granted, and construction of the Ramada is by Petinaro Construction of Wilmington and begins in 1974. In February 1976, just weeks before the hotel is expected to open, the $2.5 million hotel project is the site of an attempted bombing. The firm blames labor unions for the threat, as the construction company used non-union labor. Prior to this, the site was subject to trade union picketing. Nonetheless, the 90-room hotel opens in February of 1976. The hotel features a 163-seat dining room, later known as the Mark IV, and a cocktail lounge, later known as Roomers. The hotel also features substantial banquet facilities. At the time, it was quite common for hotels to feature restaurants and nightclubs, and many were very popular destinations in the communities they served. At opening, the general manager is Peter L. Chickarine, and Sandy Cear serves as a director of sales and marketing. She hailed from the nearby Sheraton Hotel south on 202 in Wilmington, near the site of Widener University's law campus today. It's likely the hotels were owned or managed by the same company based on an ad featuring both hotels. And from historic ads, we can tell Sandy remained with the Ramada until the late 1980s, if not into the 1990s. It was also more common in this time period for hotel personnel to stay with a hotel for a decade or more. When I started work at the hotel in 1986, the general manager was Barbara Zier, who had previously worked at the Treadway Inn of Pottsville, a hotel operated by Inn Management, also with a club called Roomers. Zier was originally from Perth, Australia, and I remember not only her accent but her grace, hospitality, and kindness. I believe she remained with the hotel for many years, and passed at the age of 78 in 2005. Her obituary mentions her tenure as the Ramada Inn general manager. Just a decade after opening in 1987, the Ramada started construction on a new wing that would house an additional 50 guest rooms and 50,000 square foot conference center. It was from 1986 to 1988 I worked at the hotel front desk while a student at the School of Hotel and Restaurant Management, at the time on the Widener University Wilmington, Delaware campus, south on Route 202. The hotel main lobby entrance was to the side of the building, not visible from routes 1 or 202. The primary car entrance was from Route 1. Upon entering the lobby, the front desk was to the left, and the offices for sales and food and beverage were to the right. The lobby was quite large, as I recall. Directly ahead was the Mark IV restaurant, and down the hall to the right were the banquet rooms and nightclub, at the time known as Roomers. In time, this would be greatly modified, but we'll get to that shortly. During my time there, I snapped a few staff photos, and my family stayed at the Ramada when I graduated from Widener. During that visit, we recorded some silly home video, which offers a rare glimpse inside the hotel in the 1980s. In my collection of papers, I found a brochure, floor plans, and even some school projects I did focused on the Ramada brand. By all research I could find, the hotel was still franchised as a Ramada in late 2001, a full 25 years since opening. Sometime in the early 2000s, it transitioned to a Holiday Inn Express. The first mention of the Holiday Inn name is in a 2005 article, while the last reference to Ramada Inn dates to late 2001. In 2012, it dropped the Holiday Inn franchise and was briefly an independent known as the Brandywine Valley Suites, as observed on Google Street View in September 2012. Soon after, it's rebranded as a Wyndham Garden Inn. By 2019, it is a Clarion Inn and Suites, and by 2020, it becomes a Comfort Inn and Suites, which is the brand it operates as today in 2026. In other words, during its 50-year life, it spent over half as a Ramada, then changes names 5 times in the second half. It's almost certainly around the time it switches from Ramada to Holiday Inn that the section once housing the dining room, nightclub, and banquet areas is transformed and leased as independent space housing Hooters, various restaurants, and Dunkin' Donuts. The Hooters sign is visible in 2007 street views but is gone by 2022. I visited the hotel in 2018, and the hotel entrance was now on the back side, in between the original 1976 wing and the addition in 1987, though modern-day visitors would have no idea this was 2 separate construction projects. Ironically, this faces neither routes 1 or 202. The original entrance only served to access the leased restaurant space and was no longer connected to the hotel, despite all being under one roof. I suspect these modifications took place all in the early 2000s, once it was no longer Ramada. If I had to guess, the area once home to the Ramada nightclub known as Roomers would be transformed into the space that would house Hooters and or Firewooders. The transformation of a building over time can be quite interesting, and such is the case for the Ramada Inn. Much like the hotel, the chain itself has seen a huge transformation. By the late 1980s, the brand was slipping, and in the late 1990s, Ramada as an entire brand was sold to Sendan. And by 2006, the Ramada brand would become one of dozens under the Wyndham chain. For a solid 2 decades after opening, the Chadds Ford Ramada Inn was a vibrant part of the local community, as observed through various articles and ads, and like many older hotels, would become just another franchise with much less community space. Hotels today often dismiss their history, when in fact embracing it might make for a unique and interesting story. While researching this project, I sought additional photos and stories through several area Facebook groups. In doing so, I learned it was the front desk manager that hired me, Terry Lynn, who had received the bomb scare phone call in 1976. She remained with the hotel for 16 years. Another post was from Betty Ann, who worked at the Ramada for 20 years, starting as the lobby girl in 1982. We most certainly knew each other during our time working there. I'm still very interested in any photography, as there certainly must be some photos stashed away in many boxes. Please share your memories of the Ramada Inn, and I hope to discover even more history and photos.